think it works that way, does it? First John, the book of First John. That was, I got, the first time that ever happened to me, I had to think about it a while. Well, yeah, I know who that is. I should be there. And I thought, I don't think they're around anymore. And this one, same deal. Anyway, so Eric is at Blue Springs tonight, preaching their summer series. And so, I preached there a couple weeks ago. And so you're going to get a summer series lesson from there. And that's from First John. This is a very interesting lesson. And so it's really a neat lesson as far as, you may not think so, but as I studied it, there's a lot to it that I guess I never thought about or put it all together. And so when you think about First John, the title of the series, or the, not series, but my lesson assignment was Brotherly Love from the Apostle of Love, and I was given First John as my text. I said, okay, that sounds pretty exciting. And so we can study that out because we think about love. We think about a lot of times 1 Corinthians chapter 13 that Paul wrote on love. When we think about the Gospel of John, there's a lot of mentions of love, right? What's the most famous verse in John, the Gospel of John? Come on, nobody.
3:16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For God so loved the world. And then there's other places. You look at John chapter 15. Right? You see love mentioned there. And so, brotherly love from the Apostle of Love. And so as I thought about this, as on the surface, before any study went into it, you think about your Bible study being objective or subjective. Do we understand the difference? Subjective is I believe something, so I'm going to go to the Bible and use that to prove it, right? Objective is when we look at the Bible and see what the Bible really says, okay? And so my subjective, as I thought about setting it up, I'm going to go to 1 John, the book, and I'm going to look for, guess what word I was looking for, being my assignment was the brotherly love, phileo.
Yeah.
Phileo, right? So I'm going to find that in the Greek. And so as I went there, guess what? I never found in the book of 1 John. Phileo. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. And so as I started my study, this was very mechanical, the first half of this study. And the first 2 points that we get to tonight, and we'll get into the discussion and look at 1 John. It's very mechanical, okay? And what I mean by that is I just looked at the word and the meaning of those sorts of things. And so the word love is found 24 times, or in 24 verses. It's found 36 times in this short book. 5 chapters. Love is the most common usage, but it's found in other forms. And I mean L-O-V-E. And in 1 John 4, verse 7, you see the loves in plural, right? Loves. Okay, as an action. Love, L-O-V-E-D, in 1 John 4, verse 10. You see that word. But, as we look at this, the two words, the two Greek words, and if we're familiar with our Strongs, right? Every Greek word, that's why I'm able to study Greek, not because I'm a scholar, because I understand Greek, but because I can read numbers. And so I can look at the G25 and G26 being the Greek words that that come from, or that are agape, right? Both of those are agape love, but they're two different, the endings are different, right? And so of that, when you look at 1 John 4:10, we see love 2 times and loved once. But when you look at 1 John 4:10, the first love here is the Greek word G26. Loved, L-O-V-E-D, is the Greek word 25. And the second love is also the Greek word 25. It's very complicated. I know this is not your normal Bible class, right? Lots of things. But I'll read you the definitions of these two. The Greek word 26, agape, it means love. King James translates it as charity. And it means an affection or benevolence, and that's why it's translated in our King James Bible as charity. Places like 2 Peter 1, verses 5 through 8 is translated there as charity. 1 Corinthians 13 in the King James is translated as a charity. I double check that. I'm sure that's right. I double check that. Then we have the Greek word 25 that I mentioned. Instead of agape, it's agapeo. And what that means, basically, it just has, it has a alpha omega instead of a new, if you know your Greek alphabet. So, it means to love in a more moral or social sense. Be loved, be loved. And so we see it's a very similar word, but the Indian changes the tense a little bit. Kathy, imagine leaving. So,
Because I love you.
anyway, verse 3, or not verse 3, point 3, I'm giving, this is still introduction as we think about this. If you're not confused, I was a little bit, but here's what we see. This isn't the first time that the apostle wrote about love. We mentioned a few minutes ago about he mentions love in the Gospel of John. And so, same author, different book. Now, how many chapters are in 1 John? Remember? There's 5 chapters. Double check me. It's easy because it's only on 2 or 3 pages, right? All right. So you got 5 chapters. Okay. When you go to the Gospel of John is in chapters is over 4 times bigger. But what's interesting as you think about that is in the Gospel of John, you find love in various forms, and it's found 57 times in 39 verses. And so, we see that in the book of 1 John, the word love, as translated into the English, we're not talking about the Greek, we're talking about the English word love, is far more concentrated. So, when you go to John 5 and verse 20, and we're in the Gospel of John, you got to remember Lloyd Mitchell, he passed away. Remember when he came in one of our meetings, he talked about Big John. Anyway, all right, that's the difference. Size. John 5 and verse 20 says, "For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does, and he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel." Now, as I mentioned, as I began my study, as I went to 1 John, because I never, as many times as we read through 1 John, I've never done a word study of the word love from 1 John. So it was eye-opening for me, because I was looking for phileo. Well, guess what we just read here? You see the beginning? Now, when we think about this, what is phileo versus agape? What's the difference? Brotherly love. We have the city of Philadelphia, right? The city of brotherly love. Okay? So when we think about brotherly love, translated sometimes as kindred love, right? What's kindred? Family. So in this verse, for the Father loves the Son. I know I gave away the answer, but what word do you think might be found here? Because it's mentioning a kindred love. Phileo, not agape. Right? The love that we have for our family. Can we love our family with agape love? Yeah, we should. It's a deeper form of love. We should. But the kindred love that we have, say, well, they're my family, right? Well, they're my family, therefore I have to love them. Well, that's a lot of times we're referring to the kindred love of phileo, aren't we? And so agape is a deeper sense of love. We're loving the unlovable, right? That's what agape, the principle of that love. demonstrates his love. Same as show, but for my mind, the way it works, we see God demonstrated his love. How did God demonstrate his love? Well, God loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten Son, John 3:16. Here, God demonstrated his agape love in that he did what?
Gave his son.
For who?
Us.
Yeah, that's right. But in that while we were still outside of Christ, without Christ. Okay. Now, what are we talking about? It should be easier to love members of the church, right? Who have a common goal, a common purpose. We should treat each other the way we ought to treat one another, right? So it should be easier to love members of the church. But here what we see God said is while we were still outside Christ, while we're still heathens, without God, being ungodly ourselves, what did we do? God demonstrated his agape love in sending his Son. Right? Okay. So, with that in mind, I want to mention this. When you go to the Gospel of John, we'll see that love most often, not the only chapters where it's found, but most often is found in 13, 14, 15, and 17. That's where if you study the Gospel of John, you'll see love. And probably the one that's most famous for us is John chapter 15. In John chapter 15, and so after Jesus is talking about the vine, starting in verse 9, Jesus says, as the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you abide in my love. And so we see this. Verse 13, greater love has no one than this, is that he laid down his life for his who? Friends. Okay. Was God our friend? Was Jesus our friend? He laid down his life. Right? Okay. So we see that. So, I will give you this. There is Charles R. Swindoll has and you can find it online, it's easily accessible. He has a lot of outlines, a picture outline, okay, like that. And so you may have seen some of his outlines before. I've used some before. I'm not going to say I condone everything he has and puts out there. I want to give credit to where credit's due. Anyway, he had John broke up as it broke up chapters 1 through chapter 2:11 is living in the light. Chapter 2:12 through 2:27 staying in the light. Then 2:28 through 3:23 is practicing the righteousness and love of God. 3:24 through 4:6 is testing spirits. 4:7 through 4:21 is loving others as God loved us. And then chapter 5 is believing in Jesus. So, if you take his outline, we see love's mentioned several times in his outline as he broke up 1 John into the different sections. So, that's my introduction. You confused yet? I'll share my notes if you want them. They may be yours, but they might let you know. But anyway, if you were to be looking for the phrase brotherly love, it's found 3 times in the New Testament. And it's found in Romans 12:10, found in 1 Thessalonians 4:9, and Hebrews 13:1. So if you're looking for brotherly love, because that's our theme tonight, you see brotherly kindness in 2 Peter 1 and verse 7. And so when you think about 2 Peter, and we're going to read 2 Peter 1 verses 5 through 8. But for this very reason, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, virtue knowledge, to knowledge self-control, self-control perseverance, to perseverance godliness, to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness love. We see the 2 words that we talked about. What are they? Phileo and agape, side by side. And Peter gives this list. A lot of us are very familiar with this list, and we say, well, the reason God put these things in this order, he said, add to your faith virtue, virtue knowledge. These are what? To love mankind. Why? Because for God so loved the world, God loved the world so much. We have the same attitude as God. But as we think about that, who's it easier to love? Our brother or a stranger? We should.
Be your brother.
There you go. I'm the born on this one. All right. So, with that being said, then Peter said, learn to love the brethren first. Once you can love the brethren, just start loving who? Everybody else. Right? Learn to be a loving person for all mankind. Stepping stones. So, as you think about the Greek word, and I know we go back, and I don't want to bore you with Greek words, but it meant a lot to me as I developed this study. Okay? Because the Greek word Philadelphia, that we would say, or Phila, means fondness, right? Means fondness. Okay. But what's it a fondness of? Right? When we say phileo, what we have is we have a, let's see, let me give you the other one. Philadelphus, try to say it right. Philadelphus. And so you have the phila as the beginning, right? What's the compound word? Anybody know? You got it, yeah. Words that were put together. Okay. And so the ending, right? We had like ran, run, running, runs, right? It changes. So phila is a fondness, and the dophilus is brethren. Okay? So it's a compound word. So when you look up phila and the different endings, then it runs from the Greek word 5358 all the way down to 5373. And so phila, the fondness of, sometimes, as I mentioned, how many times is it brotherly love found in the New Testament? 3 times. And then 1 time brotherly kindness. It's translated, same word translated a different way. But so as I developed this study, I found out that phila, depending on the ending, can mean sometimes translated or be translated this way. Because the fondness. Sometimes it's going to be translated as friendship, kiss, Philemon. The beginning of his word was actually phila. Okay? A lover of pleasure, have affection for, fond of self, fond of money, fond of silver, sometimes translated covetous. Love towards a man or love for my husband, fondness of, and fond of brethren or love of the brethren. So the beginning, a fondness of, but it can mean a lot of different things. And I thought it was, at least it struck my interest when I thought about a lover of money, fond of money. Okay. So we know, what we know is from the phila that we were dealing with, or the topic was we're dealing with brotherly love. But how do you preach about brotherly love? And so basically what I'm doing, I'm just telling you how I wrote my lesson. This is editorial, right? That's tutorial. I'll make a YouTube video. Anyway, all right. So once I did that, so we talked about kindred love, was our first point. So then what I had to do is I had to try to find kindred love in the book of 1 John. Well, it wasn't that hard. You ready for another list? This is point 2. Kindredship. So I had to find kinship in the book of 1 John. Don't worry about writing this down. I'll end up making a copy if you want.
That would be good.
These are all in 1 John, chapter 1, verse 3. Fellowship with us. 1:6. Fellowship with him, meaning Christ. 1:7. Fellowship with one another. 2:7. Brethren. 2:10 and 2:11. The word brother. 2:12. Little children. 3:13. Father. 2:29. Born of him. 3:1 and 2. Children of God. 3:9, born of God. 3:10, children of God. 3:10, love his brother. 3:11, love one another. 3:12, brother's righteousness. 3:13, my brethren. Love the brethren, 3:14. The brethren, 3:16. Brother in need, 3:17. Keep his commandments, 3:22. Or we, collectively, keep his commandments. 3:23, love one another. 3:24, abides in us. 4:4, you are of God. 4:6, we are of God. 4:7, love one another. 4:7, born of God. 4:9, we might live. 4:11, God so loved us. 4:11, love one another. 4:12, perfected in us. 4:16, love God has for us. 4:17, among us. 4:19, he first loved us. 4:20, love his brother. 4:21, love his brother. 5:2, children of God. 5:4, our faith. 5:13, written to you. 5:14, he hears us. And 5:16, his brother. Now, read through the book of First John, and you will find that these are not the only places. I start being more selective. These aren't the only places that talk about a common union. And that's what kinship is, isn't it? A common union. So what this long list that may have been boring to hear, what we see is there's a kindredship that John is writing about, right? And some of the things we noticed was, right, that we are born, our Father. What are those talking about? Family, right? What family are we discussing? The family of God. And so we go back and we think about the lesson. I say, oh, well, there is kinship love. But none of the times that love is used was phileo ever used. Always agape. And as I thought about that, we come to our third point, love for the brethren in the book of 1 John. And this is where our discussion, I wanted to have more time because I wanted to discuss this together as we look at these verses. What you had a congregation that wasn't loving one another. And because they weren't loving one another, John wrote to them and says, you better start loving one another. All right? And he tells them some reasons why they should love one another. And he tells them the reasons or the repercussions if we don't learn to love one another. Okay? As you think about it, he's writing to a family. Which family? The family of God. We call it a congregation. We call it the church. So, 1 John 2, verses 9 through 11 is the first set of verses we're going to look at together. 1 John 2, 9 through 11. Would anybody like to read these? What kind of hog is that?
1 John what?
1 John 2, 9 through 11.
He that saith he is in the light and hateth his brother is in darkness even until now. He that loveth his brother abideth in the light, and there is none occasion of stumbling in him. But he that hateth his brother is in darkness, and walketh in darkness, and knoweth not whither he goeth, because that darkness hath blinded his eyes.
Okay. So, we remember we're writing to the family of God. Those who had been baptized into Christ have put on Christ, right? Who are members of the body. In verse 9, he who says he is in the light. Now, a lot of us are pretty familiar with 1 John 1 and verse 7. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Jesus Christ, his Son, continues to cleanse us from all sins, right? And so that's why it is the case that when we're baptized for the remission of our sins, that's the only right way to be baptized. Be baptized into Christ for the remission of sins. We see that in Acts chapter 2 and throughout the book of Acts. Then we understand that those wash away all which sins? Pastor Ford. Past, right? So people ask the question, and sometimes it's a legitimate question. If baptism washes washes away all of our past sins. Then once, if I sin again, which we will after we become a Christian, how do we fix that? 1 John 1:7. But if we walk in the light, he is in the light. As he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And once we come in contact with Christ's blood, and we're doing our best to do what's right, right? And also we see in verse 9, if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us of our sins. That's not prior to baptism, that's after baptism, right? So that's why we don't have to be baptized 400 times. Okay? So, we've got that principle. We go back to verse 9. He who says he is in the light. Does everybody who thinks they're saved, are they saved? Who's John writing about? The ones who think they're saved. Well, so I was baptized 30 years ago, right? Or 3 years ago, it doesn't matter. But he says, he who says he is in the light and hates his brother is still in darkness until when? What's he saying? That individual saved or lost? He's lost. Why? Because of his attitude. Think about that. Because of his attitude. He said, well, I've been baptized. I go to church every Sunday. I can go with sins. Doesn't matter. Right? If we hate our brother. Verse 8. Again, a new, 10. Not, we're at 9 here. 10. He who loves his brother abides in. Is that the only thing you have to do to go to heaven is love your brother? No. But the topic of 1 John is what? Is those that were hating their brother have to change. Right? He says, he who loves his brother abides in the light. And there is no cause for stumbling in him. Now, this is the Greek word agape, right? Which means loving who? The lovable or unlovable? Yeah. But if it was loving the lovable, it'd be the Greek word phileo, wouldn't it? Right? We use the word agape, talking about loving the unlovable. He's writing about members of the church towards others what? Members of the church. We go back, we just study 1 Corinthians. This is going way too far. We're not going to knock tonight. We'll just keep going. We run back, we read 1 Corinthians 13. And we think about 1 John, we think about this. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. Love is not puffed up. Love does not behave rudely. Love does not seek its own. Love is not provoked. Love thinks no evil. Love does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things. Love believes all things. Love hopes all things. Love endures all things. Love never fails. Right? We've heard that hundreds of times, haven't we? Right? But John's telling us that there's a problem because they're not practicing that. So then, we see verse 11. He who hates his brother is in darkness. Is this the first time John said this? No. You had a congregation of people who hated one another. And said, well, I'm going to heaven anyway. Right? I've asked this question, and I've heard others ask it. They said, who do you think's going to heaven? Well, the church. Christians. Yeah, but you can't get along with Christians. And you want to spend eternity with them? You ever thought about that? You say, well, I can't sit in a pew next to that person. Are you going to spend eternity with them? You ever thought about that? Right? There's people in our community that feel that way. Right? I can't talk to you. I can't worship with you. I can't sit with you. I can't visit with you. But we're all going to heaven. Right? Drive right on by, won't wave, won't talk to you. Right? Okay? Think about that. It says, but he who hates his brother is in darkness and walks in darkness. Therefore, Christ's blood is no longer there. 1 John 1 verse 7. He says this, and does not know where he is going because the darkness has blinded his eyes. We know where he's going. Where's he going?
To the darkness.
Does he Because why? Because his pride has blinded his eyes. Okay. Look at verse 13. No, wrong chapter, wrong chapter. No, he does not know where he's going. That's the Greek word that means understand. He doesn't understand where he's going. What's our job? Restore such a one. Because he has no clue the road he's on. Okay. All right, somebody lock that door. 3:13. 3:10 through 12 first. 3:10 through 12. We got to finish this. This is important stuff. 3:10 through 12. It says, in this the children of God and the children of the devil are made known and manifest. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is he who does not love his brother. For this is the message that you heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Not as Cain, who was of the wicked one, and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his works were evil and his brothers were righteous. Somebody told me recently, and then I had to do this assignment. It said, you know, the first sin before hatred, hating your brother, hating someone. I said, I never thought about it. I said jealousy. And then I studied this and came to this verse. Okay. Cain was jealous of his brother Abel. Why? Because he did what was right, and Cain chose not to. Right? Same principle. Okay? And so as you look at this, you say, oh boy, this hits home, doesn't it? In this, verse 10, the children of God and children of the devil are made known. Who was Cain? Children of God or children of the devil? Cain's the one who killed his brother.
Children of the devil.
Yeah. And so, who's John writing to? Members of the church. He's writing to a congregation. He said, we can know that you're not from God. You're not a child of God the way you're acting, right? Now, I've said this phrase 100 times over. Have you ever met a Christian leaned on a pickle? Someone is sour towards everybody and everything? No, it's impossible. John's writing about it, right? You cannot have a bad attitude and go to heaven, right? We've got to fix it. So then verse 13, he said, do not marvel, my brethren, if the world hates you. We know that we have passed from death to life because we love the brethren. He who does not love his brother abides where? In death, in the darkness. Whoever hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Why are we a murderer? Murderer.
Because you wish them.
Yeah, that's what hatred is. Right? And that's what, you see, Cain hated his brother because his brother was righteous. We looked at that in verse 13. So he did what? Well, killed him. Right? Now think about some of the problems we have in life sometimes, and it's because someone is unrighteous and they're jealous of your righteousness. Does that mean we stop being righteous? No, we need to get them to be righteous.
So basically, it's a turn of attitude, right? Because if you don't love somebody, you can't just turn it on or turn it off.
What's that?
If you love or hate somebody.
Love